Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about astrotheology. The word itself speaks to the influence of stars on religion. And we all know that because of the rotation and movement of the Earth, we have repeating patterns in the sky, with the most obvious being the day and the years, because they happen frequently, so we can observe the cyclical and changing pattern of the seasons or aspects of day and night. Of course, the ancients were aware of much larger cycles, such as what Plato called the Great Year, a 25,900 year precession of the equinox, where there are 12 ages, roughly 2,200 years each, where different ages are said to embody different aspects of nature, the same way that different annual seasons do. To that effect, there were even longer astrological cycles, particularly documented in the writings from ancient India, which not only predicted events such as periodic global cataclysms, but also spoke of golden ages, which followed periods of degradation and cultural decline. One 20th century student of these ancient teachings, which were preserved in India, was Maximiani Portas, born in France in 1905, and a convert to Hinduism. She was instrumental in the early New Age thought about preparing for the end of the Kali Yuga, the last of the 4 ages the world goes through according to Hindu scriptures. As a young child, she learned French and English from her parents, then taught herself modern Greek and some ancient Greek. She became fluent in 8 languages: English, French, Greek, Italian, German, Icelandic, Hindi, and Bengali, and had a knowledge of many others. She also earned 2 master's degrees in philosophy and chemistry and a PhD in philosophy from the University of Lyons, and had a vast knowledge of religion and history, particularly ancient history. But then she abandoned her academic life, underwent a spiritual crisis at the end of her studies, and as a self-described nationalist of every nation, she embraced National Socialism in 1929 in Palestine and went to India in 1932 to research the esoteric Aryan religion for herself, soon changing her name to Savitri Devi. Savitri is one of the Sanskrit names for the sun, and Devi means goddess. After changing her name, she converted to Hinduism and dedicated herself in freeing the subcontinent from both British imperialism and from all universalistic ideologies, such as Islam, communism, and liberal democracy, as well as Christianity, which she condemned as an anti-Aryan faith. According to Aryan tradition, history moves in cycles, beginning with a golden age or age of truth, and decline from that point until one reaches the Nadir, or the 4th age, the Dark Age, or Kali Yuga, in which evil and falsehood reign, and at that point, the forces of decay expire from their own corruption and a new golden age dawns. According to Hindu tradition, the present Kali Yuga will be ended and the next golden age will be inaugurated by the 10th avatar of Vishnu, Kalki. I won't go into who she thought Kalki was, but Savitri Devi died on October 22nd, 1982, at a friend's house in England. Her ashes were laid to rest with full fascist honors.
We're on the trail of a European woman who came here in the 1930s on a kind of spiritual journey. She learned Indian languages, took an Indian name, married a Brahmin, and made India her home. But she wasn't on some hippie quest for enlightenment and good hash. In 1945, Savitri Devi came here to the festival of Kali, the blue-skinned Hindu goddess of destruction and rebirth, to heal a broken heart.
I took part in the festival like a frantic person. The women smeared their hands and faces with red and purple on that occasion. I smeared myself too. I did what they did. And I can see myself too in the Kaligat temple in Calcutta, in front of the statue with the drums beating and resounding in me. The Nuremberg trial was on at that time. Mother, dark blue mother, avenge them. Avenge them, avenge them, the martyrs of Nuremberg.
Avenge them, the martyrs of Nuremberg.
You heard her right, the martyrs of Nuremberg. Savitri was here to mourn the fall of the Third Reich and fortify her faith that National Socialism would rise again. She believed that if her Führer had won the war, he could have ended the Kali Yuga, the dark age of Hindu mythology, ushering in a golden Aryan future. Savitri's nephew, veteran left-wing journalist Shumanta Banerjee, is worried by echoes of his aunt's views in modern Indian politics.
Why is Savitri Devi relevant for India now? It is because her disciples are ruling India today. The members of the present Modi-led BJP government have imbibed Savitri Devi's ideology.
Shumanta's talking about Hindu nationalism, the belief that India is an essentially Hindu country, another element of Savitri's faith, and now the official ideology of India's ruling party. Savitri was born Maximiani Portas to an English mother and Greek-Italian father in France in 1905. As a young woman, she was swept up by Greek nationalism and its dream of uniting all Greeks in a single enlarged state. Hitler, she felt, unjustly treated by the victors of World War I, wanted the same for his people.
And much more meaning the freedom of Europe, the freedom of the Aryan race.
And much more, meaning the freedom of Europe, the freedom of the Aryan race. He's the one who's going to free us from all that. He's my leader too, mein Führer.
Mein Führer.
Savitri travelled to India in the 1930s to look for the pagan world displaced from Europe by Christianity, and was dazzled by the colours and sounds of a Hindu festival celebrating Rama and Sita. For her, the ceremony proved that Hinduism honours the Aryan race above all.
I saw this crowd all around the sacred tank.
I saw this crowd all around the sacred tank, under the full moon, a violet sky, beautiful. The crowd of dark people honouring the Aryan conqueror who presented white, honouring him with praise, with flowers, with a whole ceremony. And I thought, here you are, non-Aryans in crowds come and worship as a god, an Aryan king of old. That's lovely. I was proud of my race.
I was proud of my race.
Savitri married a man she thought of as a fellow Aryan, the Indian Brahmin Ashit Mukherjee, and became part of his family. Early travellers to India noticed that Indian and European languages have many words in common. Enlightenment scholars speculated that Europeans and Indians were descended from common ancestors who lived somewhere in the north, and eventually labelled this putative people Aryans.
The dream of my life is to integrate.
The dream of my life is to integrate Hitlerism into the old Aryan tradition, to show that it is really a resurgence of the original tradition. Not Indian, not European, but Indo-European. It comes from those days when the Aryans were one people near the North Pole.
Near the North Pole.
Savitri's fantasy of an Aryan utopia somewhere near the North Pole, presumably before the ice and the polar bears arrived, comes from an early Indian nationalist called Tilak. The word Arya first appears in ancient Sanskrit texts. Historian Romila Thapar has been studying them for more than half a century.
The connotation is the person who is to be respected, and it referred very much to people who spoke the Aryan language. And so Indian nationalism latched onto this and said the Aryan race was the progenitor of what we today call Hindus. So that gives legitimacy to the Hindus as being the people who gave us our civilization. The Hindu majority has Aryan ancestors, the others, the minorities, don't. This is essentially a Hindu culture. The Muslims have no role in it. It's a Hindu civilization.
In the years before independence, it wasn't unusual for Indians to admire Hitler. Some kept little shrines to him beside their household gods. But few continued the cult, as Savitri did. For Savitri Devi, history's victims were the Germans. After the Reich's defeat, she returned to Europe, carrying in her mind the four-armed dark blue goddess of destruction and rebirth.
And she went to Germany in 1948 and started passing out flyers and leaflets to the occupied Germans in the Western Zone.
I'm for a multiracial world.
I'm for a multiracial world in which each race keeps to itself, in harmony with the other races, like in a garden, You have flower beds with roses and flower beds with carnations and irises and different other flowers, and they don't intermarry.
They don't intermarry.
People want to be racialist, but they are told that racialist is naughty, is wicked, evil, against the tide of history, that we've all got to come together like the Coca-Cola advert. I wish the world could be in perfect harmony with choirs of teenagers, all races singing their little hearts out about this idealism. Utter tosh. But that's the moral, psychological atmosphere that's been created by international big business. They want the white peoples of the earth to be dissolved.
So what do they then do instead?
They vote for things like Brexit. They vote for people like Trump in order to revolt. It's going to be an incremental process where we reassert ourselves.
Savitri Devi too thought it would take a long time for the Aryan race to reassert itself. Eventually, the end of the Dark Age, or Kali Yuga, would come in a fiery cataclysm.
It will take centuries. It will be done slowly.
It will take centuries. It will be done slowly. Every person will contribute to it more or less. It will not be done in this age, what we call in India the Kali Yuga, the Dark Age. When, after the Third or Fourth World War, I don't know, there will be a new world, fewer people.
The position of the right today is we're in a battle for the culture.
While Savitri Devi remains a controversial figure, as well as a largely forgotten one, her disdain for communism and other religious attempts to cover up ancient esoteric knowledge below a culturally Marxist veneer is still shared by many, although to a large degree limited to secret societies, mystery schools, and other occult orders. The antagonism towards Christianity, for example, is not aimed at events that allegedly took place 2,000 years ago, but to organizations that sprung up centuries later, such as the Catholic Church, which preached forced collectivism while burning, torturing, and executing any dissidents, for example, the Cathars or Templars, both of whom brought their guarded alchemical wisdom into Europe from places like the Levant, Middle East, Mesopotamia, and Indus Valley. Islam had a similar effect, where the conquered civilization is made to give up their prior cultural and ethnic identity, traditions, and spiritual practices handed down over many millennia.